yesterday's we showcased clean air solutions implemented by the national governments. We had representatives from the Philippines, from the People's Republic of China, India, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Kyrgyz Republic. Today, we are going to tackle how sectors such as the environment sector, transport, energy, industry, urban development, waste, and health, among others, will be working together or need to be working together in order to fight air pollution and climate change.
A very warm welcome to all our distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am once again delighted to extend a warm welcome to all of you on the second day of this great conference on air quality. A topic which, of course, is of extreme importance to ADB and, of course, to the region. VP Yasmin yesterday mentioned in her remarks that air pollution and climate change are twin challenges, two sides of the same coin. And it threatens many aspects of our lives and our economies, including, of course, our climate, our health, our agriculture, our biodiversity, and, of course, more generally, our economies.
Air pollution remains to be the largest environmental health risk in the world, associated with 6.7 million deaths. With most of that, actually about 70% occurring in Asia, according to the Health Effects Institute State of Global Air report released in 2020.
If there are certain occurrences that happen in your city, as long as your plan is based on evidence and the data and science, you can make decisions very, very quickly.
At yesterday's plenary, we showcased clean air solutions implemented by the national governments. We had representatives from the Philippines, from the People's Republic of China, India, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Kyrgyz Republic. Today, we are going to tackle how sectors such as the environment sector, transport, energy, industry, urban development, waste, and health, among others, will be working together or need to be working together in order to fight air pollution and climate change.
A very warm welcome to all our distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am once again delighted to extend a warm welcome to all of you on the second day of this great conference on better air quality. A topic which, of course, is of extreme importance to ADB and, of course, to the region. VP Yasmin yesterday mentioned in her remarks that air pollution and climate change are twin challenges, two sides of the same coin. And it threatens many aspects of our lives and our economies, including, of course, our climate, our health, our agriculture, our biodiversity, and, of course, more generally, our economies.
Speakers, that air pollution remains to be the largest environmental health risk in the world, associated with 6.7 million deaths. With most of that, actually about 70% occurring in Asia, according to the Health Effects Institute State of Global Air report released in 2020.
If there are certain occurrences that happen in your city, as long as your plan is based on evidence and the data and science, you can make decisions very, very quickly.
Good morning, everyone. Plenary session will happen in Auditorium 2 and 3. You may proceed inside to settle down. The session is about to start. Thank you. Once again, kindly proceed inside auditoriums 2 and 3 for the morning plenary session. Thank you. May we request everyone to please proceed inside auditorium 2 and 3 for the morning plenary session. We're about to start in 1 minute. Good morning, everyone. May we kindly request you to please kindly take your seats. We're about to start the morning plenary session. Thank you.
Good morning. Okay, excellent. So good morning. This is the last day of the Better Air Quality Conference. Very happy to see all of you here, especially also our former Vice President Bindu Lohani, who I'm seeing here. Today, I'm Suzanne Ross. I manage knowledge at the bank and also the Innovation Hub, which you might have seen there. I'm also a medical professional by background, so air quality improvement is really very close to my heart. I've lived in Manila for 19 years. I take the train every day on top of EDSA. I take the bus. So I'm not only a professional in this area, I'm also a citizen here, so to say, and I have children and I raised them here in this kind of air quality. So I have a really large and big interest in improving air quality where we all live. In the past 3 days, you have discussed a lot about countries' interest to invest now in air quality improvements. the demand of citizens for better health, but you've also discussed the issue of funding. There isn't enough funding going into air quality improvements. And you've also discussed the need for more collaboration, more multi-stakeholder collaboration. And these are the two topics we want to discuss today in this panel this morning. The panel is about financing clean air and climate solutions. And I think in the word solutions, you already actually have the need for collaboration. So it's a great pleasure to moderate this panel today, but to kick us off and to get a bit of the sad facts or the promising facts, I'm very happy to introduce Sean Maguire to you. He's the Director of Strategic Partnerships of the Clean Air Fund, and he will explain to us a little bit the state of play of resource mobilization. So happy to hand over to you now, Sean.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for showing up for a talk about money. And there's no better place to do that than inside a bank. So thanks again to the ADB for hosting us all this week to discuss air quality in Asia. So I want to start with a brief introduction to the Clean Air Fund. We are a global philanthropic initiative that was founded in 2019 to fill the gap between organizations working on climate and organizations working on health. It's amazing, given how much damage dirty air does to people and planet, that so little attention was being paid to it. So we were created to try to fill that gap. And our role is to push air pollution up the agenda of global policymakers and decision makers, and to work on the solutions that are needed to clean our air. And one of the things we've done is to shine a light on international financing of air quality, or more accurately, the relative lack of financing. So how have we done that? Well, we've created an annual report that looks at the issue. And we started out just wanting to see who was funding what and by how much, both on the philanthropy side and the international assistance side. And it's now become a very important way of tracking all kinds of international financial assistance for cleaning up the air. And we've been improving the methodology each year, and this is the 5th annual edition. And my remarks this morning are largely based on what's in this year's report, which you can find online. And there's a few summary copies here too in the corner. But why do we do it? What is the justification? Why do we argue that air quality demands more attention? Now, there's an array of statistics: 7 million deaths a year, $8.1 trillion in health costs every year, 570,000 children under the age of 5 dying each year. The statistics can be absolutely numbing because they're very large numbers. But it's important nonetheless not to ignore the huge economic and human cost inflicted by air pollution. And we've been spending a lot of time discussing that over the last 3 days here in Manila. It's important to remember the child who develops asthma, who can no longer play sports. And it's important to remember those people who work outdoors and who are turning up at doctor's surgeries with lungs that look like they've been heavy smokers all their lives. And let's remember that air pollution particularly impacts the vulnerable and the disadvantaged: children, the elderly, the already sick, and the poor. And as well as the human toll of lifelong illness and early death, there's the huge economic burden that air pollution imposes: health costs, lower crop yields, reduced productivity, etc., etc. And it all adds up to a compelling case for action. So, unfortunately, that importance is not borne out by the actual figures on funding. There is actually very little money, just $17.3 billion over 6 years. Less than 1% of all development assistance is going towards direct air quality projects. Now, this is the money from international development funders that's lent or given to other countries to help them specifically to improve their air quality. And you can see there's some difference year on year, with a slump in the COVID year, and some inconsistency, with a peaking in 2019 due to the large Philippines railway project, but then declining again in 2020. But essentially, we're just bumping along the bottom in the grand scheme of things. Now, What about the value of these investments? Do they give us a good return? Well, it's quite hard to quantify exactly the benefits of air quality investment, as you have to estimate the value of lives prolonged and lives saved and make estimates for absenteeism reduced and improved workforce productivity. But we know from the previous slide that the costs inflicted by air pollution are huge. So just saving those costs gives you a good sense of the ROI. And in the US, they figured out that the Clean Air Act, back from the 1970s and again revived in the 1990s, had delivered a 30 times rate of return in terms of economic benefits from investments in clean air. Now, what was this money spent on? Most was spent on transport projects and then multi-sector air pollution control programs. Now, we love those. We love multi-sector air pollution control programs. And it's essentially where a city or a country has decided it has a serious air pollution problem and it wants to get a grip of it. So it goes to a funder and it borrows to invest in understanding where the air pollution is coming from. It puts air pollution monitoring in place and it develops regulations and policy to tackle the underlying sources. Dirty factories, old vehicles, coal-fired household heating, waste burning, etc., etc. And there have been some very big projects like this in China, for instance, that have made considerable strides in reducing air pollution in some regions. You might not be able to see it quite so well, but there's one very, very tiny sliver up there called monitoring and modeling. Monitoring and modeling accounted for just 0.5% of total commitments between 2017 and 2021. And this is quite alarming because that means very little money is being lent or given for these monitoring and modeling projects. And they're sort of the basics of air pollution reduction. Because without knowing where your air pollution is and where it's coming from, it's really hard to have a serious plan to combat it. Now, this is the other category. This is projects that mention improved air quality as a side benefit. These are projects that don't primarily exist to improve air quality. So they could be clean energy or transport electrification or waste management. And they're done for good intrinsic reasons. And they offer air quality benefits as well. So $101 billion was spent over the period on this. And that's obviously much more than this more strictly defined category. But it's still not enough. It's only 4% of the total. And so that essentially means that 96% of funding makes no mention of potential air quality co-benefits, which seems to be a large missed opportunity. Now it's time to see who spent the money. Now, this is the ranking for the first category, for development actors funding outdoor air quality projects. So you can see first few places: Japan, Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Bank, Canada, Korea, World Bank. So you'll see there's quite a strong regional pattern. And you'll see there's a clustering there, a regional clustering. You'll also see that there isn't much of a tail. The top 10 are basically the whole lot, representing 97% of the total. And we really need to increase the number of countries and agencies that are funding this work. Because if we increase the number of countries and agencies, that means that there are more of them who actually see this as a problem. And right now, too few countries and agencies see air pollution as a problem worth investing in. Now, this is the ranking for development actors funding projects with air quality co-benefits. This is the second broader category that I mentioned before. It's quite similar, though there's a bit less of a regional clustering. Again, Asian Development Bank at the top, European Investment Bank, Japan, Inter-American Development Bank. Again, it's quite concentrated on the top actors. Beyond the top 10, you quickly get to small and negligible amounts, and then you tail off to nothing. Who received the money? You'll see that 86% of it went to just 5 countries in Asia, and more than a third of funding went just to China. That's a huge country, China, huge air pollution problems, but this is still a picture of quite strong concentration. Obviously, it's good, as we saw from the previous slides, that Asian financial institutions are tackling the issue in Asia. It's important to note just how pronounced the regional concentration is. And what does it mean for the rest of the world? Well, it's neglected. Africa gets just 5%, and Latin America gets just 1%. Now, that's a real issue for Africa, where some of the world's largest megacities are emerging, huge poverty, congestion, and air quality problems. And there's a real risk that Africa is going to go down the same fossil fuel intensive development path that China and India went down, with all the attendant health and economic problems that that has caused. This may cause less alarm in this audience, but with Africa increasingly a destination for investment from Asia, I would suggest it's not an issue that can be ignored. Now, what can we say about other countries in Asia that have received little? Vietnam, Indonesia, India, etc., etc. So let's take a look. So this is the breakdown of other Asia, the category called Other Asia. So this is $550 million. Now, 300 million of that went to just two Central Asian countries, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, which left 200 million for everywhere else in Asia, including Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, Asia, India, and Nepal. Now, of course, this does not account for outdoor air quality funding committed domestically by national and local governments in these countries. And that's an important source of funding for this problem. India, for example, has been less open to taking out loans from international development funds to tackle domestic air pollution. And instead, it's chosen to address this largely through its domestic and national budget. So in 2020, for instance, the government of India set aside $1.7 billion to fight air pollution over the subsequent 5 years in 42 cities. Now, an open question whether this is actually enough, given how huge the air pollution problem is in India. And it's an open question just how much of what has been budgeted is actually being deployed and spent. And just as a side note, we need to keep an eye on the quality of projects too. When I dug into what lent to Cambodia, it turns out it was to build a bypass road around Siem Reap, which is great for air pollution within Siem Reap, but it moved the air pollution somewhere else. So I'm not sure that that counts really as a long-term solution to the problem. So there is another problem with the way that money is being distributed. It's tailored largely towards middle-income countries, which can absorb more debt. Very little of it is in the form of grants, around 8% to be exact. And that's particularly relevant for the Africa situation, where so many countries are already debt distressed. But I would suggest it's probably also relevant in Asia. As you know, grants are incredibly important for funding basic capacity building and technical assistance, which is often required before you can even begin to think about designing a bigger loan-based program. And grants are a key way of building demand from countries for financial assistance for tackling air pollution. Now, I'm not so naive to think that there's billions and billions of dollars of development funding waiting just to be given away. But the figures do suggest that the packages and the mix of loans of development funding aren't persuading finance ministries in poorer countries. So while the health and the environment ministries might be saying action on air quality is a priority, the finance ministry is saying, sorry, it isn't a priority and it isn't affordable. Which begs the question, how can we increase demand from countries for investment on cleaner air, and how can we make finance packages more attractive? So what's the answer besides increasing funding overall? Well, one possible answer is to put together smarter finance packages that can entice capital from different sources, including the private sector. And our survey suggests that there is much more that can be done, and that there is sufficient use of diverse financial instruments to pull more funding towards the equality issue. De-risking projects through guarantees and currency hedging can make them more attractive. Air quality benefits and objectives could be better and more explicitly integrated into the design of new green, social, and sustainability bond programs. And results-based financing has been used in China in particular, and is a model that could be used further. And blended and structured finance are also mechanisms that appear to be underutilized for air quality. So, what are the key takeaways for you today? Quite simply, first of all, are that there isn't enough money being spent on this issue. Second, that the money is not getting everywhere that it needed. More positively, there are signs that development funders can change their behavior, because the evidence is that they're stopping new fossil fuel funding. You'll remember that there was a big push around the time of COP26 with G7 and G20 to really stop development funders from financing fossil fuel projects. And we've been tracking this for some years now, and this is the first time that it's showing up in the figures that funding for air quality is at a higher level than funding for fossil fuel projects. So if development funds can get that right, why can't they change their behavior on air quality? And how would we like development funders to change? It's a bit of a detailed list, but it includes substantially increasing air funding quality commitments, working with governments to stimulate demand for air quality funding, increasing grant and concessional finance, and piloting other forms of innovative financing. And taken together, if we can make progress in these areas, we'll be taking considerable steps towards cleaner air that we all need and want. But there is one last crucial element. Sending the right signals is crucial. If the leaders of finance institutions make it clear that for them reducing air pollution is a priority because of the huge health, social, and climate benefits it will bring, that will show national and city governments that it's being taken seriously and for which they can get financial help. So to help stimulate some healthy competition among development banks, I've put up there a quote from the new World Bank president, A.G. Banga, who started to talk about clean air as a key component of the bank's new mission statement. And his quote is, "Young people deserve clean air, clean water, healthcare, and decent jobs." And these words are obviously very welcome. And I'd love to hear such words echoed by the leaders of other multilateral development banks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. This was a great keynote, which brought some critical points. I can take away here really the need for MDBs to be more involved in the policy dialogue, to create more demand for these kind of programs, to invest in air quality improvement and build capacity. And we can't think this happens overnight. So let's hear now from our panel. We have a very interesting mix of experts. Several are scientists and have very deep understanding of the topic. So I'd like to introduce first, maybe then you'll come all to the stage, please. I'll sit at the end here, so it's easier for you to come in. We have Dr. Sonal Singh, please. He is a scientist from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of the Government of India. So very nice to have you here today. Then we have Mr. Pavan Patel talking about competition. I think we won't talk about competition with the World Bank. We talk about collaboration with the World Bank and exchanging our knowledge and our expertise. So very glad to have you here. Dr. Patel, he's a senior economist at the World Bank. You just moved to the Philippines to the environmental hub that is based here in the Philippines now for the World Bank. So glad to have you here. And then we have Dr. Akiran Suganarat. He comes from the private sector, from Energy Absolute, a clean energy company in Thailand, is very involved in Thailand in clean air. And then we have Mr. Yu Kamei from the International Cooperation Office. He's the director there of the Environmental Management Bureau at the Ministry of Environment. So glad to have you here. And next, please, from ADB, very happy to have here my colleague, Lin Lu, who's now an advisor in the Secretary's office, but before really led this first large air quality improvement program in China. So glad to have you here. And then we have Mr. Husni Mubarak from Climate Works, who will share his insight with us. So you can see here great round of experts from government, from foundations, private sector, and from the MDBs. So to start, let's hear maybe first from Dr. Singh about your challenges and what have you done so far, finance and achieve results for clean air? What have been your challenges and how are you addressing those challenges?
Yeah, thank you. If I talk about India, so we started our initiatives for clean air from 1995. It was the first time when white paper came for New Delhi because air pollution was a concern at that point of time. And identified that vehicular pollution is the key to control. And we shifted to Euro 2 at that time and unleaded petrol, which costed around 10 billion USD at that point of time, because switching from for clean fuel was a huge investment. And there have been many investment in the form of PPPs in metro networks and other infrastructure. But the key challenge which I see is that of technology and technology providers in India. And recently we have also launched a National Clean Air Program for 131 non-attainment cities in India. And that has a total budget of around 1 billion USD. And the program envisages that there are action plans to be made, and those action plans have to be state specific based on the identified problems of the regional areas. And those programs are being implemented, and around 80% of the fund has been released in those issues. Yeah.
So maybe if we can delve a bit deeper in your point on one of the challenges is really technology. Can you explain that a bit more? And how could we overcome this challenge?
If I can give an example of thermal power plants, like we had revised the standard emission standards for thermal power plant, and SOx levels were reduced to a level that FGD was required. And we have to extend the timelines for the implementation because FGD vendors were not available in India. And there are few thermal power plants, maybe 1/3 of the thermal power plants, which have installed FGD, and remaining thermal power plants are in the process because vendors are not available.
Okay, so I'm taking away here, it's really important to build a whole ecosystem around clean air quality improvements. You need the technology, the vendors, the financing. So what lesson do you learn from this? What would you have done differently 10 years ago? Would you have said, give more signals to the private sector, or?
What we have learned is now that before initiating any revision or any plan, we also assess that what are the technology providers and to which level we should reduce so that uniformly it is implemented throughout the India.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I stopped turning it off. Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. So let's hear now from Dr. Patil and the World Bank. How are you at the World Bank financing air quality improvement programs globally? Like, do you have the secret sauce of making it more attractive? And can you share a little bit more about the engagements you currently have globally and, of course, regionally here in Asia?
Great. Well, thank you very much for that question. It's a real pleasure to be here at the conference. You know, globally, the World Bank, under the leadership of our new president, Ajay Banga, has a new mission. And we're on a mission to become a bigger and better bank, but for a specific purpose. Our mission statement has actually changed from the past to include addressing extreme poverty, boost prosperity on a livable planet. Now, I know for many companies, for organizations, everyone does visioning exercises, so on and so forth, and maybe even forgets about it later. But our organizations, things like this make a lot of difference because it shapes the course of our policy and investments and our engagements all over the world. It's also an explicit recognition that the poverty-environment nexus is inextricably linked, and that becomes one of the key drivers of what we do and how we do it. So I asked about globally. We use our global expertise and analytics to accelerate knowledge and know-how. We used our deep analytics so far in this space to help shape perceptions based on evidence and science. For example, we use this as a way to link, to learn, and to leverage. So specifically, what has the World Bank done globally in terms of helping to shape this discussion as we look ahead? First, we've done our deep analytics to make the business case for countries at a global setting to realize the impact of air pollution on human health to the tune of $8.1 trillion a year, equivalent to 6.1% of global GDP. These are things that, matter when it comes down to policymakers and decision makers. It's the evidence base and the rigor underneath it that helps policymakers and citizens themselves sit up. It may seem like an abstraction to some, but all you have to do is walk out your door in any major city or walk into a rural village in any place around the world to see the impact of air pollution that's happening. It's visible, it's increasingly becoming measurable, and hopefully with good data analytics and technology, more monitorable as well. Another World Bank study I want to share that helps shape our bigger and better bank for the future is really around the fact that it's about jobs. When we think about legislators, when we think about decision makers who are in positions of power in government, it's about the economy, it's about jobs, it's about citizens and the citizenry. So we've been able to do analysis. It's often quoted by many over the course of the last few days, including earlier this morning by Sean. These are the statistics that we have. Like, for example, that recent study showed that 20% in reduction in PM2.5 concentrations can be associated with a 16% increase in employment growth. Okay, so again, air pollution linked to jobs, job growth. 30% increase in labor productivity growth rate. Now, I don't care if you're an economist, a financier, an environmental specialist, a policymaker, or just an interested citizen. All of these things matter because the data analytics can help to sum up to something that allows us to make better decisions. And at the end of the day, we know that it gets the attention of policymakers. And we know that solutions must target both, and when it comes to air pollution, both outdoor and indoor air pollution. And I think that's why the bank has a much better engagement on both sides of the coin. And if you allow me just a few moments, I can share a little bit in terms of a snapshot from around the world. We're a global organization, and over the last 20 years, we've been making quite some strides when it comes down to addressing pollution. In fact, we've invested about $50+ billion in pollution more broadly across the development landscape over the last 20 years. But as Sean correctly pointed out, in some ways, of course, we can talk a little bit more about the data that you presented about the World Bank Group in terms of how much we're actually financing. And of course, we can always talk about nickels and dimes and cents. But I think, again, at the end of the day, the most important fact is that there needs to be much more development financing when it comes to this. But let me give you a snapshot and a tour of the world. For example, in East Asia and the Pacific and China, we have $1 billion of investment in air pollution over the last 10 years. Thanks to South Korea, in terms of looking forward, in terms of grants, the World Bank can now engage in countries like Philippines and Laos and Indonesia when it comes down to helping governments and all of us working in cooperation to basically support the next phase, which is around investments in addressing air pollution. And in Europe and Central Asia, and the Kyrgyz Air Quality Improvement Project, we had a representative here from that country talking about it. We've invested $32 million in the South Asia region, in India, in Uttar Pradesh. We have a $300 million investment in improving air quality management. And in fact, later on today, some of my colleagues from the World Bank who are here amongst the audience, just in the next hall over, will be presenting about our regional work in the airshed that is around the Indo-Gangetic Plains and the Himalayan foothills. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we've invested about $1 billion in Mexico and Peru on policy operations that help to support improving air quality explicitly. And in Middle East and North Africa, we've invested $200 million in air quality management. So again, it's not to say that we're doing enough. It's clear that all of us need to do more. But what we as the World Bank can do in terms of not competition with ADB or any other multilateral development bank, but we can actually engage in cooperation. And if not competition or cooperation, maybe co-opetition, but that actually is a pathway forward for us to all pool our knowledge, our opportunities for investment, including addressing our respective constraints to ensure that developing countries and developed countries, frankly, beyond our own mandate, are able to get the investments that they need to address the air pollution problems that we see all over the world.
Thank you. So does the World Bank have a specific trust fund for air quality improvement? Are there more grants available now with this new mission?
Yeah, so for example, in order to become a bigger and better bank, we have created a new evolutionary roadmap. And that roadmap is a compelling vision on how we're going to address some of these big global challenges. And air pollution is certainly nested within that. And one is, for example, when Sean pointed out the quote from our president, one that people take notice of. And so I think that the evidence, organizations and coalitions like the one that's been developing under BAC and others, including informing our governments, as well as the private sector participation, it allows us to actually come up with the argument to enable and unlock grant capital, as well as concessional financing.
All right, okay, so more policy dialogue, bringing the evidence to the donors and the governments. So let's collaborate on that, on that point. A recent report from ODI, by the way, shared that MDBs aren't that good with policy dialogue. So maybe that's something we have to collaborate a bit more on. So let's hear now from Dr. Akeren. So Ranurat, I think Thailand is a very interesting example because the private sector there seemed to have been more advanced than the policymakers, and then the policymakers followed. So if you can share a little bit about what you need from the private sector side to really accelerate private sector participation in improving air quality in countries and specifically cities.
Right. Well, I would like to give a background of what we are doing, right? Absolutely, we were the pioneer in the renewable energy business for the last 10 years. We built first wind and solar farms in Thailand. And yes, as you mentioned, that we do things ahead of time because we see the global trend. That's why we have been installing the EV chargers in and around Bangkok since the last 7 years. Even before there are any issue or there are any incentive programs or policies from the government, because we see the global trend is coming and we do things ahead of time because we want to encourage people to use the EV. We want to create a people perception. Then they feel more comfortable that they see that there are more chargers in and around Bangkok and expanding to other main cities in Thailand, right? But when the time comes, let's say, in order to wait for the policies from the government, which we don't know that when it comes, or any incentive program, we give a push to the government that, hey, it's the right time. We have been installed almost 1,000 chargers in Thailand, in Bangkok. And if we need people to use, and if we want to encourage people to use and to change to EV, we need your help. We need the policies. We need the incentive programs because policy always the keys. And also the incentive programs. For example, in order to create perception of the people to use the chargers, they cannot wait 1 or 2 hours charging their cars. We need a DC fast charge. It means people can charge their car within 15 to 20 minutes from 0% to 80% battery capacities. But we need, if we are going to use the DC fast charge, the electricity price will be very expensive because we need a large amount of electricity in a very short times. So we encourage the government to have a low priority tariff. So it means people can use the DC fast charge with a much lower price than the normal price. This is one thing. And another thing, since we want to make the conversion from the ICE vehicles to the EVs, we need to have the incentives. For example, we built the first battery factories in Southeast Asia. Now today, the 1 gigawatt-hour battery factories are in operation for the past 2 years, and we are expanding to 4 gigawatt-hours. It will be complete by the end of next year. But in order to do so, we need all the tax benefits, incentive program from the government to make the large investment on this. And apart from the clear policies and the incentive programs, another thing is about the accessibility to the funds and loans, right? We learn from our past projects, since we get the green loan for our solar power plants and green bonds from our wind farms from ADB. Then we start talking with the Swiss government. That's why there is a cooperation between CLIC Foundation and our e-mobility business in order to get the fund, from the CLIC Foundation by selling carbon credit from our e-buses, which we aim to sell 500,000 carbon tons within 2030. Because now today we already deliver 1,200 e-buses to Bangkok metropolitan offices and aiming to deliver 800 buses more by the mid of next year. It means we are going to replace 50% of the buses in Bangkok. And one of the key things we learned from our business is that money is everything. It's not just the bank side, but it's also for all of us, right? In order to encourage people to make the EV adoption, to use the EV, we need to offer the lower price. So that's why we need to get the support from the government and additional fund. Because in order to create more perceptions, encourage people to change their new car to the EVs, they must feel that they are saving their money, which means they are earning more. If we can succeed this, I think we can see that the adoption from the ICE to EV will be much faster than this day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suvanrat. I think very interesting points. You touched on a vision that the private sector needs to have. You touched on the need to collaborate on policy making. Did you have any, are you working with an institute in Thailand also, some knowledge base which helps you with that policy dialogue with government?
Well, based on our experience, when we are making business in Thailand or dealing directly with the government, it's much more efficient, right? But in order to do so, we have to show them what we have done in the past. Okay. Right? Since we have successfully implemented renewable power plants, we invest a lot in battery factories and infrastructures in and outside Bangkok. Then the government agencies, they realize that we are taking it seriously.
All right, so you need the case studies, yeah?
Right.
To not tell, but show when you discuss with governments. Thank you.
Exactly.
I think the other interesting point was behavior of citizens, right? How do we change behavior of citizens so that they actually use e-vehicles or charging stations and so on?
Right, we have to make them feel more, let's say, it's about perception. Yeah. They must feel comfortable how to use the chargers, right? They cannot wait 1 or 2 hours. They need 15, 20 minutes, just a little bit much longer than they fill their gas tank. This is one thing. Another thing, they don't want to pay more, right?
So I think that's a very good message that you are giving. They don't want to pay more. No one wants to pay more for it, so it has to be really smart. Thank you very much, Dr. Akeren, very impressive. So let's hear now from Mr. Yu Kamei from the Ministry of Environment in Japan on how do you finance air quality improvement programs, and what kind of new innovative modalities you're currently offering or working on?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor for me to be invited to such a great plenary session as a speaker. Thank you for giving me the great opportunity. Could you show yes, this one. First of all, the Ministry of Environment Japan is committed to a co-benefits approach, promoting co-benefits approach of air quality improvement and climate change mitigation measures since 2010. In particular, we are working with Clean Air Asia for promoting improving air quality, and we are also conducted the joint research projects with International Institute for Applied System Analysis for co-benefits approach. And regarding the supporting programs, I'd like to introduce Japan's financing programs for air quality improvement through a joint crediting mechanism, abbreviated JCM. In 2013, Japan have established the joint crediting mechanism in order to contribute to not only the reduction of the GHG emissions, but also for the sustainable development in partner countries. Under this scheme, the innovative point of the JCM is that JCM is beneficial to both countries, both partner countries and Japan. Under the JCM, Japan support initial costs to introduce leading decarbonizing infrastructures or technologies in partner countries, and Japan will acquire part of GSM credits in return for contribution of Japan. In this way, we contribute to the achievement of NDCs of both countries. Now we already have 27 partner countries and over 230 projects worldwide. There were two main programs to support the implementing JCM projects. The first one is the finance program for JCM model projects. In this program, our budget is approximately $100 million US per year. We can support up to 50% of the project investment costs. And we support international consortia, which includes Japanese entities and partner countries' entities. And the second one is Japan Fund for the JCM, managed by ADB. This is the ADB Trust Fund to provide financial incentives for the innovative leading technologies. And in this fund, our budget is approximately $20 million US per year. Anyway, we've already implemented the various types of the projects across many sectors. For example, building the renewable power plants and introducing the high efficient equipment or facilities. And also there are some projects for waste sector and the transport sector. And these projects are aimed at the reduction of carbon dioxide mainly, but many of them also contribute to improving air quality. And now I'd like to show you some of the supporting tools and programs for developing the JCM project. We have the JCM Global Match, the Japan Platform for Redesign Sustainable Infrastructure. Both of them supports the business matching opportunity for the JCM project. And on the third bullet, I'd like to explain the city-to-city collaboration program. Japan is now creating more than 100 areas as a leading decarbonization area. which aims to achieve net zero by 2030 ahead of nationally scheduled date of 2050. Japan supports pairing the cities with such Japanese decarbonizing cities to promote knowledge transfer and sharing good practices. And we've already supported pairing several cities, and half of them also developed the JCM model project through this program. So I hope more countries and organizations will be interested in our program. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So a lot of innovative approaches from Japan, grant financing, new modalities, credit line. This is great, thank you. So let's hear now from Lin Lu. She has been a pioneer in this area for ADB, working especially in China. So maybe Lin Lu, you can share with us a little bit how do you make financing for air quality projects attractive? What's the lesson learned? And how would you go about if you could design these kind of programs again, especially in China?
Thank you very much, Susan. And actually, a successful financing should incorporate a mix of mechanisms tailored to the specific need of a project, and also the operating environment. A diverse funding combining different sources provides stability and flexibility in supporting clean air initiatives. ADB has been actively supporting air quality improvement in Asia Pacific region for past decades. One notable achievement is Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei, called BTH, Air Quality Improvement Program, and which invests more than $2.5 billion in China between 2015 to 2023 through 8 loans. This program employed a comprehensive, programmatic, and integrated approach to address cross-sectoral and cross-provincial air pollution issues. The various financial instruments and modality were adopted to suit the program's specific need. Initial loans focus on strengthening policy and regulatory framework and introducing innovative financing mechanisms. Subsequent loans target highly polluted provinces offering innovative clean technologies. In addition to the conventional project lending, we also use policy-based lending and also financial intermediary loans and result-based lending. And the making clean air financing more appealing to the government involves a blend of social, economic, and environmental considerations. Well, there may not be a single secret ingredient. Many factors should be considered, and those can enhance the attractiveness of clean air financing. And using BTH as example, before convincing the government to work with ADB on supporting air quality improvement, we took a few steps. And we highlighted the long-term economic benefit and provided data on healthcare benefit to the government, including reduced healthcare benefit and increase the labor productivity. We also emphasize potential job creation in clean energy sector, stimulating the economic growth. We also showcase alignment with international agreement, signaling the commitment to the global environmental goals. After securing the government's support during program design, we took some following steps. We ensure a supportive regulatory framework in place through the policy-based lending. We included components in our program to build the capacity of government agencies. We developed innovative financing mechanism to encourage commercial bank, institutional investors, and private sectors also making those financing models more attractive to the government, also to the private sectors. We implemented successful clean air projects and to demonstrate the tangible benefits of those technologies. We also engage in effective communication campaigns to raise public awareness. In summary, only a combination of those factors and tailored to each country's context can contribute to make clean air financing more attractive to the government.
So what you said also before we spoke, you spoke at this panel, you said a key is really government ownership.
Yeah, the political, for me personally, and also I think for most of you, you would agree on this point. I think the political will of the government is the most important factor. Taking the PRC case as example, and the government's willingness to invest in air quality improvement is the key. And of course, we have done a lot of groundwork to lay the foundation, how to work with them together. As I mentioned, we have done analytical work through technical assistance, and we actually create a framework. And because the BTH project covers 3 municipalities and the surrounding provinces, it's as I said, it's the air pollution issue is a cross-sectoral and cross-provincial issue. So we have done a framework. We did some analytical work, and we prepared a framework, and we analyze in each different province, different municipality, what are the main contributor to the air pollution. So then for each sector, we and in different province and municipality, we propose solution for them. So we, as I said, we have to offer tailored solution to each province, each municipality, different individual EMC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this, I think, speaks also what Mr. Patil said, right? About the need for real good evidence, localizing the problem and communicating that very well to the local stakeholders and decision makers. So thank you, Lin Lu. So let's maybe hear now from Mr. Husni Mubarak about ClimateWorks. What's ClimateWorks actually all about and doing, and how do you see your role to enhance and increase buy-in from governments to invest in air quality improvement programs, especially also linked to the big energy transition that we need to see?
Thank you for the questions. And please allow me to start by introducing ClimateWorks Foundations and one of its program, the Global Energy Transition Initiative. So ClimateWorks Foundations is a global platform for philanthropy to innovate and scale high impact solutions to accelerate climate progress, obviously into a more sustainable one. And since our establishment back in 2008, we have granted 1.7 billion US dollar to over 750 grantees all over the world. And one of its program, the Global Energy Transition Initiative, is actually a very unique program because it's a partnership between ClimateWorks Foundations and Bloomberg Philanthropies, one of the leaders in philanthropic sectors, with a single mission to deliver a high impacts and immediate actions to drive country level transitions from coal to clean energy. So in our work to achieve our missions, we've been working with our partners from philanthropic partners, as well as from implementing partners such as civil society organizations, think tanks, research institute, universities, among others, within the energy transition space in various sectors of the energy transitions, from technology, from finance, from environmental aspects that includes the air quality works. In fact, our program strategy for the Global Energy Transition Initiative is explicitly embedding the air quality as one of the important aspects for several reasons. And I apologize to repeat this over and over again, but we've heard in the past few days over 90% of the world population is actually living in an area that doesn't meet the WHO standards for healthy air. And Sean has mentioned it costs us 8.1 trillion of US dollar annually for healthcare, unnecessary spending because people need to, spend unnecessary spending because they are sick and you lose your productivity. You need to take care of your kids because they are sick due to air pollutions and so on and so forth. And then, especially for philanthropic organizations, this is, I need to get my numbers right because it comes from Clean Air Fund. Philanthropic funding back in 2021 is only account for 0.1% for air quality. So out of 260 billion US dollar of philanthropic spending back in 2021, only 0.1% goes to air quality. And the other reason, obviously, for us, because we find a direct linkage between air pollutions, air quality works, and our missions to transition coal to clean energy. Because obviously we know coal is one of the highest emitters. It produces emissions. And our colleague from Mongolia, from China, and my fellow Indonesian have also mentioned coal is one of the producers of black carbons and other air pollutants. For that reasons, we are very committed to air pollution work. And then some of the examples of our past works includes like science-based policy making, updating data, updating emission inventory, as well as assessing health impact due to air pollutions, of course, being done by our implementing partners in Asia Pacific regions. And I would like to close by saying, going forward, Climate Works Foundations, with the guidance from Bloomberg Philanthropies, we are committed to continue our works, not only continue, but also to expand our work within the air quality.
Thank you. So part of your work is to work with local think tanks, right? And knowledge organizations to build knowledge in countries.
In country level.
How do you go about that? Is that about capacity development, working with universities, or how do we build that knowledge?
So we work with various organizations. Obviously, we work both international national organizations, but we specifically, our strategy is always to work on country level. So we support, for instance, Indonesia. This is example because I come from that. So we work with a think tank in Indonesia in various aspects, capacity building to the governments, updating data, deploying laws, sensor even. So it really varies the things that we could support through our implementing partners.
Thank you, thank you. Maybe one side note here. Did you know that national science academies and science in general doesn't see any increase in funding in the last couple of years, which really limits the ability of countries to invest in knowledge base and the science and the measuring and so on. So maybe that's another area to think about what we as MDBs have to do. Let's go now to our next round. And this is really more about, we heard now all the great work everyone is doing, but let's unpack a little bit. Why do we still see not enough funding going into air quality improvement programs? What are the challenges that still persist and how can we overcome them? So let's hear first from Dr. Singh. In utopia, if you wear utopia and everything would work well, what challenges wouldn't you have? And how would you be able to invest more in air quality improvement?
What I see in India is that there are fundings in a form of co-benefits. There are various departments working parallelly, and they have their own flagship programs. And those flagship programs also contribute to mitigation of air pollution. So it's not, we don't see that it's a direct funding for air pollution, but there is funding in terms of building infrastructure through Ministry of Housing Affairs and through Ministry of Road Transport. There is, if there is shift in fuel or shift in emission standards for the vehicles, so that is there, but we don't see that there is a direct funding only for air pollution. There are many monitoring stations and other things which particularly are seen as a mitigation for air pollution. And there are several steps for those things. But yeah, there is funding, I think, and there are collaborations between medical institutions as well for to analyze the impact and how we should prioritize the mitigation measures for those things. Yeah.
So what I hear from you is maybe need something like a centralized agency or some kind of mission of the government, which brings all these different efforts together.
Yeah, for in the terms of data compilation or in terms of optics, that can be done. But different departments have different roles, and they can only implement those things. The other department cannot go and do something for road transport. So they have to do that. But yes, there should be an integrated system wherein the data is there, and we see that how much funding or how much is being spent, particularly for air pollution, because this is now a very big problem and this needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Okay, good. So better integration and coordination on that. Thank you. So, Dr. Patil, the World Bank has really been leading interdisciplinary approaches in the past, right? I know a lot about your work in Latin America on urban air quality improvements and so on. How do you see this being expanded? And how do you think, what will the World Bank do to overcome these challenges and then get more financing into air quality improvement?
Great, well, thank you. You know, we're on a mission for scale.
Yeah.
And to scale up activities that we know have visible, measurable, monitorable, demonstrated impact. We've heard the last few days that everybody is aware of the solutions. It's just a question that we need more finance. But actually, the way that we've constructed processes means by definition that just because we want to know, just because we have the knowledge, doesn't mean that we translate necessarily into the right kind of action. So the thing about the World Bank is that we have global knowledge. We know it's worked in many countries. We know what hasn't worked. And we've known what's worked with our funding and what hasn't worked as well also with our funding, precisely because of the processes in which the funding flows. But to answer the second part of your question on how do we ensure that more financing is directed to the places that need it, that actually can move the needle faster, further, quicker, again, in a measurable, monitorable way, is to understand the process of national governments. If we want to be able to, we're a demand-driven organization, actually.
It's very honest what you say.
If the governments, and particularly the ministers of finance, request from us more investment in addressing air pollution problems, we will organize ourselves in order to be able to deliver on that. So what does that mean? It means that it's up to all of us. I don't know how many members here are from the ministries of finance. I venture probably very few, if any at all. So from environment ministries, from other line ministries, from different agencies, whether bilateral, whether multilateral, different practices even within the World Bank. If we're able to help support line ministries to convince ministries of finance to request money in order to address air pollution, then you will see in the next several years a greater flow of resources of all types to address the problems that we all visibly see and that we all around this room have said over the last 3 days that we know the solutions for. But let me just also add, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And just like we have a room full of committed professionals in this room focusing on air pollution, in the next room and the other building and the other country, there's similar things happening on education, on health, on many other things that are problems facing our planet today. So it really is, the onus is on us to collaborate, to cooperate, even to compete in a way to make us better, to be able to take that knowledge and apply it in a way that we can see visible, measurable impact in a shorter period of time, because then flow of financing will accelerate.
Okay. So you've been in this business for a while. Do you see a shift in mindset now that more with younger people, that there are generational shifts in government happening?
Yeah, to me, young people is where it's at. And it's not just because my president said so, which was shared. You know, at the end of the day, we always say, who are we doing it for? It's for the next generation. And actually, the young people's voices are becoming more clear and louder. And we need to actually be able to take what they're saying and apply it in a way that when we go to bed at night, we don't say that we just leave it to the next generation, but we take that youthful energy, those insights, those ideas, and use the positions that we're in to further drive development forward, particularly when it comes down to the future that they deserve.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
yes.
Dr. Singh, do you want to add something about the power of youth in India?
Yeah, no, you're right that young generation is very concerned about this, and I really think that action should also come from them. And to add on that, what Ministry of Finance and funding through Ministry of Finance, particularly for air pollution. So in India, there is a 15th Finance Mission, which funds totally only for air pollution. And that is a beginning point, I think, now.
Okay, specific missions, committees. Okay, thank you. Mr. Suvarnarath, we spoke about youth consumers. What do you see there as an opportunity and a challenge to accelerate investments and business development from the private sector, especially in the clean air energy sector?
Well, what we see nowadays is a government of Thailand. They are heavily invest in the decarbonizations, but they almost have talked about clean air at all. Though there is a co-benefits, but I think most of the people are busy on the decarbonization things, which is actually the longer term, not the air quality, which should be solved almost immediately, right? But based on the private sector perspective, it's quite difficult. It's very difficult to make them see. So that we have to live with what we got for now, at least. That we try to make this decarbonization business like an adoption of e-sector, which has a co-benefit with clean air. And of course, the key thing is still about the policy, because in order to make this adoption, we need to heavily invest on the extension of the battery factories, e-ferry fleets, e-buses, and now today we are going to make the e-logistics, right? Because apart, when we mentioned about the air quality, almost half of the pollutions of the air quality problems come from the transportation sectors. Now we are dealing with the public transport, which is e-buses and e-ferry, right? And based on this experience, I can share with you that we ahead of time always. We installed, nowadays we own half of the chargers in Thailand, which means we own 1,000 of them. We already deliver 1,200 e-buses in Bangkok. We launched a fleet of e-ferries in Chao Phraya Railway in Bangkok. We have 22 of them in operations. But in order to even expand this public transport, we need additional fund. The cooperation between CLIC and EA about the carbon credit, I think is a good example, but we need more fund. And if we look at another sectors about the logistics is the longer distance. It's not just about one city. It's not just about Bangkok. It's a long, e-logistic is 100, 500, 700 kilometers from Bangkok to Chiang Mai in the north or to Phuket south. So we need a lot more financing support, because we need to expand the large charging stations, not charging points, charging stations for the trucks.
So on this one, you spoke about the importance of carbon credit markets, right, which helps you. Any lessons learned or thought on that?
Well, I believe it was very good examples because the process is done quickly. And this is the key, accessibility to the funds or to the financing support, right? We can take years because if we need to solve the problem quickly, we need the support quickly as well. We cannot wait for 6, 10, or longer than 12 months to get financing support. That's too slow.
And you spoke about the e-logistics aspect. What's the role of government to invest? Is there something like public e-logistic investments that governments should make?
Well, in the real world, we cannot wait for the government support. We lead the way. That's why we built the charging stations all around the countries. We show the government examples. We take it seriously and work well. Help us issue more policies, give us more incentive. Okay, if you don't have enough money, at least give us incentive, tax benefit, etc. We can invest ourselves, or we get financing support or loan elsewhere.
Okay. Is the competition increasing in Thailand, in your area? Are there more companies in this space?
Yes, there are more companies, but frankly speaking, most of them make a slower move. For example, 10 companies, they try to install more EV chargers in Thailand, but they install, let's say, 10 of them.
Okay,
But
not at scale.
But we know 100 of them.
So the scale is there.
Right. For example, by mid of next year, we can expect to see 100 of chargers at the airport all around countries.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Kamei, you spoke a lot about what Japan is doing. Are there any challenges you are facing to convince the government to mobilize more grants, or is the challenge more on the side of receiving governments to take up these offerings that the Japanese government has?
Yes, thank you. Actually, the Dr. Patil from World Bank mentioned, I think the intergovernmental cooperation is needed. It's important. So, to be honest, I was really surprised at the new report produced by the Dr. Sim Maguire that mentions Japan is the top of the international development funders of outdoor air quality projects. But in the case of the government of Japan, in my understanding, in recent years, climate change mitigation is more prioritized, and the total budget is very limited. So the budget mainly for air quality improvement has been decreasing actually. So on the other hand, there are budget mainly for climate, such as Joint Credit Mechanism program. So as we have heard many times through the conference, this using the climate fund measures to improve air quality is necessary and realistic, I think. Thank you.
So you think more funding should come from government, from donor governments for air quality improvement. So we also have to do a lot more on mobilizing among donors and convincing them about the co-benefits.
Yes. And we have to explore and expand to support the developing the tangible projects, and maybe we need some more capacity building program. Actually, we are now planning the new capacity building program in Japan this next March. In collaboration with relevant organizations, and so we need new more projects to be
more projects. Okay, so this speaks for us, World Bank. We need to find more projects. Thank you, Mr. Mubarak. Let's hear from you about what would you do if you had more philanthropic or more funding available.
From philanthropic point of view, of course, what we usually do is to support country through our implementing partners in this case by identifying the gaps and to focus on immediate actions. That's usually what we do. I mean, from philanthropic point of view, the one thing that to try to get other philanthropic be interested in this space as well, to show them that there is an opportunity to get some immediate results from doing work in the air quality space, because unlike the other sectors, like for example from the health source, in the vaccine, you get vaccines, for instance, get a shot after 1 or 2 years, you can see the impact. It's a little bit difficult with it's a bit different with air quality. After 1 and 2 years, maybe you only get data. You need years of years to build data, accurate data, in order for the policymakers to get the best actions. But still, it's still a progress. We need to convey that message so that my fellow philanthropic organizations could actually see this. And that's what we've been doing in the past 6 and 7 years. We try to be very committed. It's a long-term game. Mike Bloomberg was committed to this kind of work, but yeah, it's a long way to go, but we are here, and we will continue and to expand our work.
So what you're saying, you need to communicate better on the results.
Exactly, especially with my fellow philanthropic organizations, because as the data shows by Clean Air Fund, at least 0.1% of philanthropic funding goes to quality. So we need more message to them, because there are competing priorities for other organizations: healthcare, education, energy poverty, etc.
Thank you. Lin, regarding the challenges to convince governments, how important was, from your experience, the need to communicate on results or to show results quickly? In the program that we financed in Beijing, how long did it take to see actual results?
Thank you, Susan. Actually, we, as I mentioned earlier, besides the traditional investment loan, we also use the result-based lending modality. And result-based lending modality is a good modality to support a lot of small sub-projects, but with a common goal, like for this case, air quality improvement projects to achieve the common goal with the government. So result-based lending is one of the effective modality for us for this case. And for the BTH project, as I said, we have 8 loans and through different modalities, and some of the projects already been complete. So we can already see the good results of those programs. Some are still under implementation, and as I said, it's a set of coordinated approach. So of course, air quality improvement is a long-term issue. So it needs a long-term planning, and it takes time to achieve results. But with the government's political will and prioritization on air quality improvement, and also ADB's help and from analytical and also policy and innovative financing and supporting of the innovative technologies, it's a package of everything, and work together with the government. I would like to share with you for BTH region, and the data is in 2015, and the PM 2.5 is from the decrease from more than 100 milligram per cubic meter, and to 2021 now it's 36.5. So
how many years?
6
years.
63% of reduction.
Okay.
So it's a common and concerted efforts from the government and the other international organizations, including philanthropic World Bank. And we leverage co-financing from the other MDBs like World Bank, African Development Bank, KfW, others, and also we leverage a large amount of co-financing from commercial banks and institutional investors and private sector. So that's the importance of why we needed to set up the innovative financing mechanism to attract others and build their capacity to invest in clean air initiatives.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
coming to the end of our conversation. If you have questions for the panel, please approach them during the break. We have coffee break in a few minutes. Maybe to close this conversation here, anything you would like to say, like a last sentence, your key message? If you don't want to, that's fine. But maybe there's something you really want people to go away with in their head. You want to say something, Dr. Patil?
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, two things. Again, knowledge is power, but the application is everything. And going to your point about young people and mindset shifts, if we keep in mind a working model that we all go to work with each day, it's about creating mindset shifts, which then allow for enabling policy to be put in place, which then investment can help to drive forward, because that ends up having the biggest multiplier effect when it comes down to development financing. And also to the point of being able to use public finance to reduce the impediments for the private sector to get closer to the development solution. We know we're not going to make progress on climate. We certainly won't make progress, the kind of progress we want on air pollution, unless the private sector becomes an inexorable part of our solutions. And we hear about the need for incentives, and we should find ways to structure our financial packages to provide that.
Okay. Dr. Singh, what's your takeaway? How long does it take to shift mindsets?
Yeah, really. It is really required. And what I get from the discussion is that we have a lot of data.
Yeah.
And now that data needs to be integrated in a way that government or a policymaker knows that which intervention would be the most cost-effective intervention, so that that can be implemented. The database are in silos in various organizations, and then organizations, they struggle that now this is being implemented. Now I don't know what will be the result and what will be there after 3 years, because I have to wait for 3 years. So if some models of such sort are developed, which give a cost-benefit analysis, or at least it gives an option that these are the two best options, that and here interventions are required, that would be great.
Yeah. So better decision-making tools give confidence to policymakers that what they do makes a difference. Okay. Last words from you, maybe? Dr. Akran?
Right. Apart from the right policy and incentive program, again, accessibility to the fund is the key. Because if we need to make it quickly, if we want to make a progress faster, we need more financing support in order to heavily invest and make a faster adoption.
Okay, faster access to financing. That's a good, that very important message for MDBs. Takes a bit long to get financing from us, yeah. Mr. Kamei.
Okay, a very quick comment. I find through this conference, I find the key word is cooperation. As everyone mentioned, such as ministerial cooperation or intergovernmental cooperation or interregional cooperation, intersectoral cooperation. As a cooperation is the key word, I think. Such as this conference, we meet and we have to know more about the situation of each other, each country's situation or each organization's situation, and we have to consider about more effective measure.
Okay.
So thank you.
I think that's an important appeal to all of you. Let's make sure you all stay in touch And there is some community of practice which happens after this conference. So not everyone goes back home alone and then struggles to coordinate and collaborate. And maybe that's an area, right, where you help governments to enhance and build these communities at the local level. So what is your last word here today?
So yeah, obviously, our one of area that we are interested in is to help the plans to being merely a wish list. We have a plan. We can always have a plan, but what we want to do is to prevent it to become merely a wish list. So in order to avoid this, I think we need a clear institutional framework, responsibilities, coordination across all levels and stakeholders, communications, as well as one of the most important thing, political buy-in. Because as I mentioned, there are competing priorities and we need to prioritize this.
Thank you. Good. Lynn, any last thoughts?
Sure. I think that the panelists already mentioned a lot of challenges and how to address it and tried the importance to address this. And I want to reiterate the advocacy and education are crucial.
Yeah.
And raising awareness about the immediately and long-term impact of air pollution, demonstrating economic benefit of clean air and highlighting the successful case studies can help generate a political will and also get their public support. And additionally, integrating air quality consideration into broader environmental sustainable development agenda can contribute to increase prioritization and funding.
Thank you very much. So thank you all for spending this morning here with us. Thank you to all our panelists. Great conversation. We unpacked challenges. We spoke about the positive things that are happening, but we also really highlighted the need of all of us to help change mindset, drive systemic change, and mobilize funding together in a collaborative way and make sure clean air is on the top of the agenda of our policy makers, of all of us. So with that, I have two announcements. One is we'll take a quick photo here. And the second is there's an evaluation, and I think there is an evaluation QR code, which is being shown here. So if you can please evaluate the conference, very important to us to learn what has worked and what we can do better in the way we organize these knowledge sharing events. Your participation is very important here. And then we will break for coffee. We have a break for coffee or tea. And then there will be the last breakout session after this. So thank you again. And we'll stay quickly for the photo.
Good morning, everyone. May we kindly request you to please proceed along the auditorium hallways for the morning break. We will change the setup of the room to prepare for the next session. Once again, kindly proceed outside the auditorium. We need to prepare the room for the session, for the next session. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly proceed outside the auditorium. We need to set up the room for the next session. Thank you. Again, kindly proceed outside the auditorium. We need to set up the room for the next session. Thank you. Kindly ensure to bring your belongings, bags, and laptops. This room will be set up for the thematic track sessions after the break. Once again, we kindly request everyone to please proceed outside the auditorium. We need to set up the room for the next session. Kindly ensure to bring your belongings, bags, and laptop. For the session organizers of the next session, kindly approach the ushers assigned to your room and coordinate with them regarding the presentations and video presentations for your respective session. Thank you.